Hey everybody, Steve McGill here of hurdlesfirst.com and the Hurdle Magazine. I'm going to talk some today about the three zones or critical zones of a hurdle race. So I've been away for a little bit because been doing a lot of private coaching lately. So sorry that I haven't uploaded an instructional video for a few weeks. But I want to talk about the critical zones as referred to by Coach Wilbur Ross, who coached so many great hurdlers back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, author of the Hurdler's Bible, created this idea called the critical zones. And I'm going to talk about that today and put my own interpretation on it and explain how understanding these zones can help you to run faster hurdle times. Okay, so the three zones, zone one, let's start there, is from the start line through touchdown off hurdle 3. Okay, so that's kind of like the sprinter's drive phase equivalent. And then the second zone is off hurdle 3 to touchdown off hurdle 7. So basically hurdles 4 to 7, which for sprinters would be equivalent to their top end speed part of the race. Okay. And then zone 3 is touchdown off 7 through the finish line. Or you could also look at it as hurdles 8 through 10 and the finish line. The equivalent for sprinters would be the deceleration phase, those last 35 meters or so. Okay, so we generally like to think of the hurdle race in 3 parts, not in 2 parts. We don't think of it as a first half and then a second half. Hurdles 1 to 5 and then 5 to 10. We better to think of it in terms of 3 parts. You could even call them phases if you want to use the same language as sprinters use. The three phases of a 100-meter dash are equivalent to the 3 zones in the 100-meter or 110-meter hurdle race. Okay, so when talking about hurdling and working on the zones and trying to improve each zone, basically with my coaching, I'll work on them after we've done all of our drilling in the off season, getting our technique right, ironing out various technical flaws so that when it's time to work on the race itself, we don't have to worry about that stuff as much. Of course, we're going to tweak things here or there, but now we're focusing on putting our race in place. So zone 1 is paramount. So what I'll do is I'll have my athlete work on his or her start just to hurdle 1 and get that right, that first 8 steps or 7 steps in some cases, get that on point to where they're forward, they're driving, they're accelerating through the hurdle, good takeoff distance and all that stuff. Okay, and then once hurdle 1 is on lock, then we'll do the same thing to hurdle 2. We'll put hurdle 2 up. I always put the second hurdle in about a foot, sometimes closer, depending on how fast the track is. And go over the first 2 out of the blocks. Okay, once we got that on lock, we'll get over the first 3 out of the blocks. Okay, and so we'll do a lot of reps over the first 3, and for a good part of the season, we won't get past 3 hurdles in the fall and in the winter. We won't get past the first 3 hurdles in practice. We won't get that to where we know we got it on lock. Okay, and so to me, the first 3 hurdles is so important to determining what happens for the rest of the race, that you can't move on beyond that until you've got that to where you really, really want it. All right. So you want to, keep the upper body forward. You want to keep the feet quick. You keep the hands quick. Whatever it takes to be able to negotiate those barriers over the first 3, and to feel like you're continuing to accelerate. Okay, you don't want to feel, especially beginner hurdlers, you don't want to feel like you're reaching the hurdle. You want to feel like the hurdles are getting too close. That's it. You don't want to, because a lot of beginning hurdlers and intermediate level hurdlers will feel like by hurdle 3 they're starting to reach a little bit. Because actually the opposite should be happening. By hurdle 3, you should be starting to feel really crowded between the hurdles, if everything's happening right in your drive phase in that first zone. Okay, so in working on the zone number 2, hurdles 4 through 7, I'll just keep adding a hurdle as the athlete is ready. Okay, once we got hurdles 1 through 3 on lock, okay, now we'll go over the first 4, over the first 5, over the first 6, over the first 7. Okay, and so when we go over, let's say 7 hurdles, I probably won't do more than 3 reps of that in a session. With good 10, 15 minutes rest between reps when you're going over that many hurdles out of the blocks. Okay, and for the third phase, I don't really go over more than 7 hurdles in practice. To me, the third phase, the deceleration phase, where you want to decelerate as little as possible, is all about 2 things. It's about your off-season training, getting your speed endurance up, and getting your hurdle endurance up. Okay, that's going to make that last part of the race strong. And then the other thing is racing. You get stronger in races by racing. So your early season meets in the early spring will prepare you for the late season meets. After you've gone over 10 hurdles 8, 10, 12 times through the course of a season, now you're ready to really rock and roll the whole race by the very end of the season when championship meets are. Only time I'll go over a full flight of 10 hurdles will be in drills where the hurdles are really close together. I don't really believe in running your race in practice. Okay. I want to take a look at a few samples here. So the first one will be of 2 of my athletes, Brandon Johnson and Malik Mixon, just going over the first 3 one time. Let's take a look at that. All right. And so I'm giving them commands.
Set.
Okay, so this is a typical rep in a typical workout where I'll have them do a series of reps side by side. And in this one, you see, if you notice, I put 2 blue cones about 10 yards beyond the third hurdle, so they have a finish line to run to.
Set.
Just to keep them in the habit of running off the last hurdle, okay, especially when there's somebody next to them. Okay. Now I want to take a look at a race from my man Sam Hartman. Sam is a Division II hurdler at Seton Hill University in Pennsylvania. Sam was a star in one of my camps. We did a camp up in Pennsylvania, right outside of the Maryland border. And Sam and several of his teammates came to that one. And he and I kind of go back and forth and keep in touch fairly often. So at the NCAA Division II Nationals, he had a pretty slow start. I'm going to look at it in a minute here. A pretty slow start, but then he came back and won by like 100th of a second. Let's take a look first. Okay, Sam is the kid in the red uniform, the white kid in the red uniform. Okay, probably should have said that from the giddy up, huh? Let's take a look at it again. Okay, so he's in lane 4, big strong white kid in the red top. So you see he's way behind early, but he's gaining ground, and when the camera angle shifts, you can see here that he wins by a lean over the kid in lane 5. Okay, so what we're seeing here is that you can have a bad start. Okay, Sam had a bad start in the sense that he didn't react well to the gun, and he got out late, and he got out behind everybody. So, but my point would be that even though he had a bad start, he didn't have a bad first zone. Okay, he was accelerating through hurdle 1, through hurdle 2, through hurdle 3, which is quite evident by the fact that he was able to keep gaining ground throughout the whole race. And because his technique is solid, and he runs the 400 hurdles as well, so he's got the strength and the endurance to run the full 10 hurdles strongly. He was able to continue and maintain his form throughout the whole 10 hurdles and all the way through the finish line off that last hurdle. Okay. Let's take a look at another race here. This one is of my man Brandon Johnson. This is his regional meet, which he won, I think. Sam's time, by the way, was like 1380 something over the 42s. Brandon here won his regional race in like 1423, I think it was. Not as fast as we wanted, but he's been injured so much this year that it was pretty remarkable that he did this well. But anyway, In this race, he's in lane 4. He'll be third from the right, and the athletes will be coming right at you because the camera angles from the finish line. Okay, let's take a look. So he's in a dark uniform in lane 4. He's in the lead here. And he got a W. Good job, son. Take a look at that again. So one of the things I want to point out is that you really can't see the beginning as well here from this camera angle, but you can tell later in the race that he's having some issues with his arms getting wider, okay? And that's part of the loss of conditioning from being injured a lot. He wasn't as strong in the last part of that race. I think he can run with anybody for the first 3. He got a great start, and he's very powerful and very, very quick. You'll also notice that the kid to his right, our left, was making mistakes throughout the race, and there at hurdle 9, he really clobbered it and fell. Those are kind of things that can happen in that third zone if you don't set up yourself well in the first zone and the second zone, especially the first zone. Okay, I say the same thing in regards to the 110 hurdles, 100-meter hurdles, and the 400 hurdles. Okay, whether it's the sprint hurdles or the long hurdles, mistakes you make early, you're going to pay for them late. Okay, so if you're a little sloppy over the first 2 or 3, you might be able to recover, but it created some fatigue that it's going to be exposed over hurdle 8, hurdle 9, or hurdle 10. Some of the most famous falls in hurdle history happen in over hurdle 8 or hurdle 9 or hurdle 10 when people start fatiguing. Okay, we say we want to our 10th hurdle to look as good as our first hurdle, but that's very hard to do. It means you got to have the conditioning, you got to have the discipline, you got to have the focus, you got to have the technique, you got to have the confidence, you got to have the rhythm to where you can do all 10 hurdles and through a finish line without making any mental errors or physical errors. Okay. So we want to compensate for errors by staying aggressive, by staying fast, but at the same time, we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we have to compensate by using our speed. We want our speed to make us faster, and not using it to compensate for mistakes that we make. I was watching the NBA Finals last night, and the Phoenix Suns were like 25 or 25 from the free throw line. And that means they're not going to beat themselves. If you're going to beat them, you have to beat them. They're not going to go 16 for 24 from the foul line and let you win the game by 2 points because they missed 8 free throws. Okay, so it's kind of the same thing in the hurdles. You don't want to make mistakes because you're giving away an advantage and you're taking away your own strengths. Okay, so that's why you got to have those first 3 on lock. Okay, Coach Ross, who created the idea of the critical zones, from my understanding, the critical zone is the last zone. Okay, as Ronaldo Nehemiah explained it to me when he did workouts with Coach Ross back in 1981. Okay, that last zone is the critical zone. I interpret that as being that's the disaster zone, so to speak, where things can fall apart if things weren't going right earlier. Okay, and so as coaches, you want to train your athletes for the whole race. You want to train them for a 10 hurdle race. I made the mistake once. I had a girl who really wanted to do well indoors, and so we focused on the indoor distance. And by the time we got to outdoors, we didn't have the base we needed, the foundation we needed to run the whole race, the whole 10 hurdle race strong. And you got races every week. It's hard to fit that kind of work in, that kind of conditioning work. And so from the beginning of the season, you want to get athletes ready for the whole race, mostly through drills, where you do enough volume that they can get in condition. Okay, and now that's in there. Now later in the season, you can focus on getting faster and faster and faster and faster because you can trust your technique. You can trust your speed endurance. Okay, because even though it's only 10 hurdles and it's only 100 meters or 110 meters, it's a long race. A lot can go wrong in a 100 or 110 meter hurdle race. And so understanding the race in a similar manner that the sprinters understand the 100-meter dash will help, because a 100-meter dash with no hurdles is a very long race, right? People, football people talk around the 40. What's your 40 time, bro? What's your 40? We don't mess around no 40s. That's our first zone, bro. We haven't gotten going yet. Y'all talking about 40-yard dash, and so the best sprinters run all the phases. If you look at some old school Carl Lewis video, Carl Lewis ran the whole race. He was a good starter, but not the best starter. There are people who beat him out of the blocks, but he ran the whole race. 40 through 70 meters, he got his top end on. 80 or 70 through 100, you saw him decelerating very little. Okay, it looked like he was coming back, or he was surging, he was pulling away, when in fact he just wasn't decelerating as much as the other cats were. Okay, and in hurdles, we want to have that same idea, that same philosophy. Don't think of the race as halves. Think of it as in thirds. Okay, all right. I think that's all I have for today. So thank you for paying attention. Thank you for listening. I put the link to a couple of the camps that we're doing. Me and Coach Hector Cotto, are doing together. One in October, one in November this year. We've always had some signups, so it's filling up. But we're calling them academies now. So the shirt I have on, like Team Steve, the camps that we used to do, calling them academies now for two reasons. One, because we're reducing the amount of athletes in each camp, and also because we're putting an even heavier emphasis on the teaching element. So athletes won't be doing as much repetition or getting as many reps in, because we'll be teaching a lot in terms of the style that we've referred to as downhill. Okay, so the Downhill Hurdling Academy. So check out the link if you want to sign up for one of those on YouTube. All right, then I'm out. Thanks a lot.